Oh, hey, everybody. Look at us meeting face to face like this for once. It's me, Natara, with the sound still on my stream, so I'm getting echo in my ears. Nobody likes that. So, with me today, I have the wonderful Dr. B from Take This. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
And we are going to be talking about tabletop gaming and sort of its benefit with mental health and that sort of thing, and just tabletop gaming in general. So we do have a thread in Twitter if you want to add to that, or please just engage with the chat, and we're going to be watching that and answering all of your questions as long as they're PG-13. Don't be naughty. Don't do it.
Can I be naughty?
No.
Oh,
No, we warned you, Dr. B. Okay. I will also try not to be naughty. This morning proved I'm bad at that. Okay. So let's start off with a question from me here. When did you start playing tabletop RPGs? Like, how long have you been playing them now? Or just tabletop games?
25 years, thereabouts. So I grew up in the same neighborhood I still live in Seattle, and one of the benefits to living in the same neighborhood I grew up is I still know a ton of people here, and there's lots of people with stories about me that I would rather them not know, but that's pleasant too. But in my early teen years, I had a very good friend, still have the same very good friend, where we would just do sleepovers at his house. All the geeks and nerds would get together and just have introvert sleepovers at his place. There was Lego going on, video games going on. We had like late night Worms Armageddon tournaments eventually,
The best.
16-way fights. And there was one night where we all got snowed in, and his birthday party turned into this 3-day celebration. And he brought out the old West End Games Star Wars RPG. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but my friends are doing this, so I'll join in. And when he explained it to me, he was like, I was like, wait. I could be a Jedi.
You're like, this is the best day ever.
Yeah, no, I was so into this, and I gotta say, for those people who may have played the old West End games, Star Wars game, when you got powerful enough and you're just rolling an entire Shadowrun like brick of D6s, and you're like, yeah, I single handedly took down that Star Destroyer. What's up?
Feels so
And
good.
yeah, so I started doing that, and then the same person ended up being my DM for my first Dungeons and Dragons game a couple years later, and I was hooked. I just ran with it, and I somehow ended up in mental health and games, and now here we are. It's weird, it's awesome, and I love it.
But it's great to tie together those two things you care about so much, so relevant to your life, the things you love, the things you deal with and really are passionate about, and being able to tie them both in together must be really satisfying.
It is. I mean, there's some downsides to that as well, as I think a lot
Mhm.
of content creators are aware
Yeah.
that there is when you take something that you're intrinsically passionate about and you commodify it in any way, shape, or form, the motivations to do it can change. And so now my previously very passionate hobby is my career, and or at least a part of it. And while I still enjoy tabletop RPGs, I pursue them a little bit differently. And Lord knows I don't play video games that much anymore because I'm just surrounded by them all the time.
Mhm.
It's just it's different. But there is also something incredibly motivating about doing what you love and knowing that you're doing good with it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I can definitely agree with that with, like, the video games. It's like, I rarely casually play the games I speedrun now for the same reasons. You're like, I
Yeah.
love them, but I don't want them in my downtime too.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
fun and there's work, and we have to find a separation between the two.
Absolutely. And how do you find tying together the tabletop RPGs and the mental health? Like, how do those work together?
Well, there's a lot of different answers to that.
Okay.
So I don't see clients anymore. I used to work with clients. Now I do entirely education and policy and consultation and that sort of thing. So at this point, my work is a little bit more academic
Mhm.
and administrative driven. But back when I did work with clients, I ran social skills RPG groups for often kids who were just quirky. It was irrespective of diagnoses.
Yeah.
But a lot of the kids in my groups ended up having, they had ADD, or excuse me, ADHD. Many of them have, autism. Turns out they spotted my autism long before I did. And and I was the only person that was surprised, apparently. But the so the what I did, and this is a common strategy that just about anybody who uses applied gaming does, is that I ended up taking established interventions
Mhm.
and adapting role-playing games as a delivery vehicle for those interventions. Like, they became a way of practicing certain social skills. They became a way of practicing interpersonal communication. And that's how that overlap happened. But even if you're not a therapist, even if you're not a mental health professional, even if you're not a social skills coach, I think just about anybody who's ever played a tabletop role playing game knows that there are intrinsic benefits to simply being face to face with someone, or doing any sort of social interaction with someone, whether it's online or face to face. The idea
Absolutely.
of learning collaboration skills, the
Mhm.
idea of learning boundaries between what you do at the table versus what you do with your friends outside of that context. So you're learning context switching, you're learning cooperation, you're learning verbal and nonverbal communication skills. You're learning all of these things in this covert manner.
Mhm.
Um, for me personally, I mean, I brought up my autism. It turned out, when I looked back through the lens of, when I was 35 is when I was diagnosed with autism. I looked back at my life and realized all of these tabletop role playing games that I played, they had a consistent theme. The characters I played were charismatic and charming, which contrasted my real life feelings of insecurity and inadequacy in social situations.
Mhm.
And these role playing games gave me a safe space to practice these social skills, that the smooth talking, charismatic, very outgoing characters were a sort of fantasy wish fulfillment for me. But there just became a day when I realized, hey, if I can do it at the table, I can do it in real life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that's a theme that also is shared within the, LGBTQIA community as well.
Sure.
A good way to try out new pronouns, different genders, different presentations in that, like, pretending to be something and then trying out something and figuring out, is this safe, is this good? And like, I know many people who have done that, and it's such a safe and good way to try these things. And even sometimes just, it's true, but trying it out with your group of friends, like you say, that you've known for ages, see
Yeah.
how that interaction goes.
Sure, and I mean, I've certainly seen that with a lot of people in both my professional and my personal life, that maybe this was they had a safe enough space within that group. They had enough trust with that group that they could try something a little different. They could be a little bit more true to what maybe even they weren't willing to admit to themselves yet.
Mhm.
They got to try on different identities and then slowly manifest them generalize them through the rest of their lives. I mean, I certainly did it with social skills. They did it with things like gender.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing. And again, just that inclusivity and community. One of the most protective factors against long-term mental health distress is, and this is going to shock no one probably, but feeling like you belong is tremendously protective.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know my gaming group and I, like, it's hard to actually get together and game during a pandemic, but we've been playing games online, still meeting up weekly when we can. And I know that's been an incredible boon to me. And I'm sure other folks online as well are having that same experience because where we do have these existing groups that we
Mhm.
formed through the gaming.
Yeah, and I mean, what you're talking about is really in line with some of the studies that our research director at Take This, Dr. Rachel Cowart,
Hmm.
has found in her own original research, is that so online social spaces have some of the same benefits as IRL face-to-face communication, and that's just with strangers. One of the things she reminds us with a lot of regularity is that some of those benefits are even amplified
Yeah.
with the people you already know.
Hmm. Yeah, I could confirm that just from experience as well. Like this big, like the Valkyries community, for example. Like a lot of us were strangers, even within the Valkyries. Many of us who started this group, we didn't know each other when we started it. It's just like, oh, I know this person, and we grab people together, and now we're this family. Like we're not strangers anymore. So, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, it works very well.
Yeah, community is important
Yeah,
no matter how you find it. Community is so key to so many things. One of the
absolutely.
things that we've been talking about at Take This and a lot of our trainings and workshops over the last 7, 8 months has been loneliness.
Hmm.
And there was one particular book chapter I read that made an interesting distinction between loneliness and isolation. That there's some overlap, but
Yeah.
isolation is a function of numbers,
Hmm.
and you can have a rich social life with few numbers. You can be technically isolated, but still have a rich social life.
Yeah.
Loneliness is akin to no matter how many people you have in your world, something's broken.
Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
need. And it's
Yeah.
something we've been talking about a lot. And so having a sense of belonging and community and acceptance, no matter how you find it, is paramount to so many things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So hopefully events like this and panels like this are really going to help with people. So, you ready to go for some questions?
Let's do this.
Let's do this. Okay. So, chat, start getting your questions into the chat so we can see what Dr. B and maybe I have to say, but mostly Dr. B. I'm always here. Um, we've already asked the Twitter question we had, which was when did you start playing tabletop RPGs? So, I'll ask, what is your favorite tabletop RPG system of all the ones you've played?
You know what? I'm gonna go with I. This is gonna sound a bit like like I'm shilling for WotC, but I got to go with 5e. Um, And the reason I like 5th edition more than just about any other system
Mhm.
is it strikes probably the best balance I can think of in terms of simplicity and complexity. Like, if you like a more numbers, mechanic, crunchy, heavy type game, like you're really into something like GURPS or Pathfinder, then I think that 5e is just crunchy enough
Yeah.
to be interesting. But
Mhm.
if you want something you can simplify and change to be whatever you need it to be, and even introducing new people into tabletop RPGs, I like the simplicity of 5e. I think for whatever else we might say, the design of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, I think strikes a fantastic balance in that respect.
I have to agree. I really like fifth edition myself. I've been playing since third ed, and I have played second ed as well. But it's I get confused. My brain can't deal with all the numbers. So
Yeah.
fifth ed is a really good balance, exactly like you say, where it's not too number crunchy, but not too basic either. It's really great that way. Okay, let's get to some chat questions. We have some already. A really excellent one here. Someone in chat is saying, "I wish I knew how to overcome that anxiety of not doing well in D&D or being
Yeah.
so burned out by my work demands, assumedly to play that." Any recommendations?
Yeah. if it were me saying that, one of the first things I would consider is, what about my D&D group is creating more work for me?
Okay.
Because I faced this recently.
Okay.
When we went to an all online format, I found it was more stressful for me to play D&D.
Mhm.
And now admittedly I'm the DM. It's a little bit of a different dynamic, but I found myself not feeling restored by this experience that was previously so enjoyable. It was my way of getting away from the things that stressed me out at work. So I had to sit with this for a while, and what I came to the realization is that there was something that was creating just an inordinate amount of stress for me, and that actually has to do with my autism. That
Okay.
I'm very sensitive to a lot of things, especially auditory inputs,
Yeah.
which is why I kind of an audiophile around here. And the fact that we were doing it online
Mhm.
made it so everybody's whisper, everybody's side conversation had as much salience
Yeah.
as the person who was role playing in that moment. And they couldn't just kind of whisper at the aside at the other end of the table, and I could ignore that. It was
Yeah.
everybody could, and so I had to figure out what was the obstacle there, and in this case, it's everybody talking all at once is just overwhelming for me, and I can't concentrate. Now, for the person who asked about that anxiety about not doing well, again, if I was in that position, I would ask myself, what's stopping me from about my group is stopping me from feeling like I could take a chance.
Yeah.
Because D&D, role playing games in general, are not about winning or losing. It's about collaboration.
Okay.
And can I freely collaborate with the people around me? Am I afraid of their judgments? Am I afraid that they're going to laugh at me? Am I afraid I'm not going to remember the rules? What's getting in my way from just kind of cutting loose? And once I figure out that obstacle, then I'm going to try and work to fix that obstacle so I can have a safer space to just play and relax and cut loose.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, in my gaming group, we have had a number of people drop off while we're online because it's just too much or not enough as the in person. So when, we can game in person again, we'll be there. But they're like, until then, we can't do the online. And that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question. Another one we have here is, while I was always interested in the idea of games like Dungeons and Dragons, when I did my first session at college, I can understand how some people could be unsure due to what the game might involve. What's a good way to recommend them to give tabletop experience a try?
Well, first of all, pick a simple system. I don't know when you were in college. I don't know which system you were using, but the I think a really simple system that emphasizes probably more narrative than combat mechanics is the way I would go to get people into this.
Yeah,
So if I was using 5th edition, I would just have them tell stories to each other, because that's really what it is. We're collaboratively telling a story,
yeah,
and I'm going to coach them through some of their roles and whatnot. But more so than that, a different system to try, maybe even kids on bikes or kids on brooms, which has even less of a chance mechanic
yeah.
and more of a narrative mechanic than even 5th edition.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, please.
I was just going to say there's a lot of pick up and go systems out there, which are just a very small book. And in a lot of cases, you don't even need to pre-read them, and you
Mhm.
collaboratively like build the world, create those characters to get everything working. And so you can pick those up, and no one doesn't need to be like a dedicated DM or anything. There's no
Mhm.
complicated mechanics, and you all work together to play. So they can also be really good because again, they're pick up and go.
Yeah. There's also been a really interesting push in the independent RPG scene
Mhm.
towards a more egalitarian structure at the table. So DM-less or GM-less games has been something I've been seeing more and more, and a really interesting 100%, almost 100% collaborative narrative game is Fiasco.
Oh, yeah, is Fiasco the one that has the Tetris, or not the Tetris, the Jenga? Or no, that's a
No,
different one. No, but
no,
I had, yeah, I
uh,
have heard of Fiasco.
Fiasco is where essentially you take 5 people and your job is to essentially create a Coen Brothers movie where things go wrong.
Yeah, I am thinking of Dread. Yes, that's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah, Fiasco, where you spend like the first 45 minutes of the game establishing relationships between the different people at the table, and based
Mhm.
on those relationships you build a story. There's no need for miniatures. You do need some dice for this, but no character sheets. You need 3x5 cards and a bunch of d6s, and that's it.
Nice.
I think Fiasco might be a really interesting way to get people into the idea of collaborative storytelling that is role-playing games.
Nice. Yeah, that would definitely be a really good thing. Okay, just checking time. We looks like we got about 8 minutes. So if you want your
Okay.
questions, so another one we got is, what game or games would you recommend most for middle grade students, aka fifth to eighth grade, about like ages 10 to 14?
I think it largely depends on the developmental level of those
Yeah.
students. I've certainly I've played Dungeons and Dragons with kids as young as 7, and if you have to simplify some of the rules a little bit, and that's on a good DM to simplify the rules to a developmentally appropriate level.
Mhm.
But I will say playing Dungeons and Dragons with 10-year-olds is a hoot because they come up with ideas that you will never come up with in a million years. Your job as a DM is so much different with 9 and 10-year-olds than it is with 25-year-olds. Your job with 9 and 10-year-olds is just containment, and they will come up with wacky ideas. Just off the wall. You're just like, "Nope, nope, nope, you just carry this. All right." And there I am writing this down. Okay. Prize pig is loose. Got it. Got it. And that's your quest. You got to find the prize pig. Mhm. Mhm.
Perfect. Mwah.
Yes. You pressed the button that you weren't supposed to. Okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah, and a
So,
lot of it, you let that creativity go,
yeah.
and whew, magical.
Yeah. But I would say that the game itself that you would pick depends on 2 factors. One is the developmental and cognitive abilities of the students in question, but
Yeah,
also I would say that it depends on the ability of the DM or GM to modify the game to meet those developmental needs.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to stress yourself out trying to do that either. Yeah.
Nah.
Okay,
I
so
do love No Thank You Evil, though. That
what?
one's
Oh,
great.
thank you, evil. Okay, good to know. Um, we're being requested to hear the story of 53. You're not going to escape it. It's not happening.
Okay. Alright. So what I showed everybody before is I have a lot of friends at Wormwood Gaming, and we've had a long partnership with Wormwood Gaming. And about 7 months ago, I contacted them and asked them to make me a custom piece, and I paid for it. It's not like they gave this to me.
Mhm.
Um, but this is their Adventurer's Vault and a Macassar Ebony Rainbow 53 inlay. And the reason about 53 is it has to do with my autism. When I was a teenager, I greatly enjoyed a book by a Norwegian philosophy professor called The Solitaire Mystery. And it was a story within a story about a father and son duo and an island of anthropomorphized playing cards. Every single one of those cards had a different personality and a different identity. But one card really spoke to me, and that was the card of the Joker. The Joker in this world was simultaneously of every single suit, but really belonged to none of them.
Right.
The Joker was isolated yet amongst everyone, and The Joker was a very lonely character because of that, who didn't know how to interact with a lot of the other cards. But additionally, the Joker also had some very sideways insights that people found valuable at times. And that very largely was my and remains my experience having autism, that I see the world a little sideways. I like to say I'm a Linux in a PC world. The Joker is the 53rd card in the deck. And so subsequently, the number 53 became very special to me. And thankfully, my friends at Wormwood were kind enough to do this engraving on this Macassar ebony vault for me. And it's become just very precious to me.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine. That is an amazing story. And I'm sure a lot of us in here have felt that exact feeling. I was also a late diagnosis with ADHD, 32 or 33. So yeah, I definitely understand that feeling of the sideways in a crowd.
Just I see the world a little different. It's helpful in my job sometimes. Um my significant other likes to tell me I have this double-edged sword ability to cut through the BS. Just kind of say things how they are, which
Mhm.
is really helpful sometimes, also
Yep.
really annoying at other times.
Yep. Yeah, but generally speaking, I would guess it was useful to you and annoying to others.
Yeah, but it's I mean, that's where the character of the Joker became important to me because it's
Mhm.
the joke it's lonely. Um,
Yeah,
sometimes that's a useful ability when people need it, but it's alienating at other times.
absolutely. It most certainly is. Okay, one last question. Let's
Yeah,
see
lay it
before
on
we
me.
go. So this is a follow up to one of the previous ones, the ones about the storytelling, the college question. So,
Hmm.
especially during a time where we're mostly at our houses, I feel one thing that can bring out the appeal of the tabletop experience is watching a web series, but one that isn't just for laughs, but with a tight knit, fun loving group like Critical Role. What's your thought on this?
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it's there's a lot of things that can bring us to a sense of community and togetherness. I mean, regardless of what that is, if it brings like-minded people who are supportive of you into your life, oh, go with that.
Hmm.
Go with that. I have never watched a full episode of Critical Role.
Yeah, me neither.
Um, I it's just it's so much to get into at this point. Now, I've watched parts of it, and I appreciate all the things that they do, but it is so much to get into. So much. Um, but as long as something is supportive of you as a person
Hmm.
and honors you as a person and makes you and others feel whole and welcome, oh, do it.
Yeah, totally agreed. Can we squeeze in one more? Okay, cool. This is the actual last one. So, what are tips for making sure your table is a safe place when you know the mental health diagnosis or not of the players, DM, and their loved ones?
Well, easy thing you can do. Actually, it's not that easy. Something you can start paying attention to is how often you use mental health terms in your day-to-day life. Like we have people use mental health terms in casual conversation all the time. Just start paying attention to that. How often people say things like crazy or insane when what they really mean is unpredictable or wild.
Hmm.
People say things like I'm so OCD when what they really mean is I'm picky, or oh my god, I'm so ADHD when I'm distractible. Start paying attention to those sorts of words and start picking different ones to say more what you mean. But beyond that, a good session 0 goes a long way. If you don't know what a session 0 is, I highly recommend you look up Monty Cook Games, check out their player safety checklist or their consent checklist. But also, there's some having a good session 0. I think that one's free on the DMs Guild. A good session 0 is where you can talk about everybody's boundaries and limits on what they want to see in the game, what they don't want to see in the game, what's an absolute deal breaker for them in the game. We all
Mhm.
have those limits, and knowing what those limits are is an incredibly valuable thing. But also, as a DM, talk to your players, check in with them after games, check in with them as the games are going on, see how they're feeling, elicit feedback without ego,
Yeah.
and change your approach if needed.
Yeah, that's really good. I haven't actually heard of that term, and I just started looking it up, and there looks like there's a lot of good resources on YouTube and such as well,
Yep.
how to do a good session zero. So I think that's something we could all really appreciate,
Yeah.
especially in,
Session zeros and
yeah.
a safety mechanic. They go a long way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Well, any last words before we clue up here?
Thank you all. I mean, thanks to the RPG Valkyries. Y'all have been such amazing supporters of Take This and our mission for this is year 3, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's incredible. And y'all have raised $30,000 over the last 3 years. Over $30,000 over the
Say, I've
last
never
3
thought
years.
of adding it up, but yeah, now that you put it that way, yeah, I think we have.
Yeah.
That's even amazing to think about.
That y'all have raised over $30,000 to support our mission. When we have in-person AFK rooms, that's 3 AFK rooms.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, and
amazing. So, thank you.
we are so welcome, and thank you for providing, such a service like that. Because I'm sure before any of us heard of these AFK rooms, we'd all been at conventions and stuff where it's just too
Mhm.
much. So
Yeah.
I've personally used an AFK room at PAX Unplugged last year, and it was amazing. It was just that bliss. You walk in that room and you're just like, so thank you for that.
Well, and thank you. One thing I will add very quickly is
Mhm.
that now that we're no longer doing in-person conventions for the time being, we've really pivoted to trying to provide more online educational resources. And one of our big projects in the pipeline right now is a video series that is going to be made available for free. Hopefully starting in Q1 of 2021 of short form mental health education for content creators.
Oh, nice. That will be really helpful.
Yep, and the money will help pay our editors.
Yeah, well, we're gonna keep it coming. So, chat, you heard him. We need more money. Sorry, that's just can't end it. So, if you want to force me to play and learn Elf, that's one place you can put it, and there's lots more. But thank you so much, Dr. B, for coming
Thank
out,
you.
talking with us about tabletop gaming, and we are gonna hand things back over so we can get our next game running. But thank you so much to you, and take this.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Bye.